We're not a racist country, Brian. We've never been a racist country. Our goal is to make sure that today is better than yesterday.
After this debacle from Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley.
We asked people out on the street about that tonight. We didn't find anyone that could agree with that.
Not
statement.
anybody with common sense.
Yeah, we didn't find anybody.
Well, you know what? I've been having a hard time trying to decide who I'm going to vote for. Mm-hmm. So Nikki Haley's the leader in the clubhouse because
she was a leader in your clubhouse.
Because she's 100% correct. If you forget about slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, anti-Semitism, Asian hate that's been going on in this country, America's been smooth sailing.
Shannon Sharpe put it all in perspective on his show Nightcap.
And just asked Nikki, why you change your name? That's not your given name. Remember your father? He had to go to an HBC, teach at an HBCU because where you came from and that name you had, you couldn't teach at no PWI. You better stop playing, Nikki. Let's just go back. Let's see. We go back. No race. America has never been racist. Ask the Native Americans what they think about that. Ask the blacks. Ask about the Japanese in the intermittent camp what they think about that. The Trail of Tears. Ask them what they think about that. Yeah. Ask them about Civil War.
Okay, let's do it, Shannon.
What was the cause of the United States Civil War?
Well, don't come with an easy question or anything. I mean, I think the cause of the Civil War was basically how government was going to run, the freedoms and what people could and couldn't do.
A pathetic answer, and what should be a disqualifying one for Haley and anybody else who answers this way.
Ask them about segregation. Ask them about Reconstruction. I'm just saying, I mean, you can erase, they can try to erase all that they want to.
I'm sorry?
I'm not running for president. I wanted to see yours a good thing on the cause of the Civil War.
I mean, I think it always comes down to the role of government and what the rights of the people are. And I will always stand by the fact that I think government was intended to secure the rights and freedoms of the people. It was never meant to be all things to all people. Government doesn't need to tell you how to live your life. They don't need to tell you what you can and can't do. They don't need to be a part of your life. They need to make sure that you have freedom. We need to have capitalism. We need to have economic freedom. We need to make sure that we do all things so that individuals have the liberties so that they can have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to do or be anything they want to be without government getting in the way.
Thank you. And in the year 2023, it's astonishing to me that you answer that question without mentioning the word slavery.
What do you want me to say about slavery?
No, you've answered my question. Thank you.
But for her to say something like that.
Yeah, it's just disrespectful.
To say something like that, when the history on it is so rich.
All you got to do is.
And
right.
Google is your friend.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who prepped you before you even said that, but you need to fire them. Come on now, don't do that. Don't be insulting.
But you have to understand.
It's right there in your face. And it's still prevalent today.
Ocho.
It's still prevalent today.
Ocho, you have to understand who you're trying to appeal to. The people that she's trying to appeal to agree with her.
This is an accurate assessment.
Woke, the word woke, used to be used by progressives to talk about an awareness of inequities and historical inequities. But obviously it means something else to conservatives criticizing it. What does it mean to you? How do you define woke?
There's a lot of things. I mean, you want to start with biological boys playing in girls' sports. That's one thing. The fact that we have gender pronoun classes in the military now. I mean, all of these things that are pushing what a small minority want on the majority of Americans, it's too much.
Like, we really think she has no idea what the definition of woke is? Come on, of course not. She knows, but she panders for profit.
Sometimes you will try to appease a base that's never going to accept you. All you do is just give them validation because they say, see that black, how he says, oh, he'll take on the black establishment. He'll take on the black community. Yeah. But like Tim Scott.
Is this Donald Trump country?
He's engaged to be married. We never thought this was going to happen.
Man, he ought to be embarrassed. He ought to be embarrassed.
Right.
The stuff that he says, and how they think, bruh, to know what they say about you when they go home and they close them doors. If you only knew.
Right. They see no different.
They ain't make enough bleach. You couldn't go to Sammy Sosa doctor to make them think of you any other way.
Shout out to Sosa, by the way. Eligible for the Cubs Hall of Fame, but not Cooperstown. There's a few things that I like about this. First, Shannon Sharpe over the years has proven to be a voice of reason, bringing a different perspective when it comes to sports and politics, something that we try to do day in and day out here and get y'all to understand the intricacies and how they have never been separate whatsoever. The most obvious point to make, many on Twitter have made it. I'm glad Shannon made it. We went into detail as well when it comes to Nikki Haley. We read her name one time in order for it to not be played up in a Trumpian way as an attack, and rather it just be taken on the merit of, you cannot say this country has never been racist, ever, when to this day, this country is still reeling, for many marginalized communities, the effects of slavery. But somehow she pushes that to the side. Somehow she pushes the rate of unarmed black people being shot by police. Somehow she pushes her entire party's ideology to the side. Fine. The most obvious point to make, and what Shannon said, well, she doesn't go by her real name. Now, if one were to unpack that and say, well, why doesn't she? Is it because we as Americans struggle with pronunciations from other countries because we simply do not get out of our own bubble and try to explore and try to diversify our groups of thought? Maybe. Though that would be, if it's a football field, you're getting to the 5-yard line when you got to score a touchdown. It's racism. I would guarantee if there were a poll with the GOP voter base being honest in their answers on what are their thoughts on Nikki Haley, and they would give maybe some criticisms and maybe some praise. But if she were to have her real name displayed and it were to be Namrata, what do you think their answers would be? I'll tell you what they are. I don't like the guy, but racism is racism. And bigotry is bigotry. And what's right is right, and what's wrong is wrong. Vivek Ramaswamy, who Pablo Torre said gave a V instead of raising his hand in class because they went to Harvard together. He dropped out of the race. And one voter, I believe this was in Iowa prior to him dropping out, said, I can't vote for you because it reminds me of 9/11. Saying the quiet part out loud, aren't you there, Patty? So what it comes down to is Nikki Haley, as Sharpe eloquently put it, pandering to her base. And she knows exactly what she's doing. Because as we have gone over, check it out on demand, her father not being accepted anywhere else but in HBCU, the irony, and her in the past with the Confederate flag, all the way leading up to right now. It's revealing and it's telling. And good for Shannon Sharpe for pointing all this out.